Alright, so Star Wars Tales of the Jedi is out on Disney Plus. The first 6 episodes, that's all it's dropping for this season. Hopefully there's more in the future in a season 2. So for this video, I'll be ranking every single episode, giving you guys my thoughts on it. So there will be spoilers. And if you guys enjoy this video, please make sure to like it. Please subscribe if you are new. But let's go ahead and rank all 6 episodes for Tales of the Jedi. Alright, so obviously this is my own personal ranking. Comment down below how would you guys rank this and what was your favorite episode. So for these episodes, you know, in terms of like favoritism and how everyone's going to like certain episodes, it all depends on what you want out of Star Wars, what characters you resonate with the most. Like if you're an Ahsoka person, like you really love Ahsoka and everything around her, you might like the last 2 episodes, 5 and 6, where people who are huge like prequel fans or they love Dooku and they've been reading the Dooku books, they might love those Dooku episodes a lot more, right? So for number 6, I have actually the very first episode titled Life and Death. This is where we see the birth of Ahsoka and how she is raised with her family. I enjoyed this one. There actually isn't an episode that I thought was bad at all. I thought it was a good opening. It was sort of slow, but it was also very like majestic and samurai-ish in like the way it was filmed and like the score. That's one thing I want to say about all these episodes. The score and animation were amazing. Even better than the Clone Wars Season 7 that we just got. I think just Dave Filoni knows how to do this type of stuff. And hearing all that prequel music integrated in, it was beyond perfect. So the first episode I have here and last, like I said, I liked it. The best parts were obviously involving that tiger and seeing how Force-sensitive Ahsoka was after the tiger captures her. And she's able to sort of like do some beast taming on him. And then I thought the mother was going to die in that scene right before that. As we see by the end, like she's able to survive as the beast brings Ahsoka back. It was a nice thing, as you know, the grandmother says Ahsoka's a Jedi. It sort of sets the tone of what the show's going to be like, while also it being a good opening since we know that Filoni like loves Ahsoka since like that's like his baby, that's like the thing he created, and she's become such a huge character that starting it out with this just made sense with her story. So from there though, I think we get into like the very thick of like what Tales of the Jedi is really about and like what a lot of people are really going to come to watch, which is Dooku, right? I think episode 2 was great, but that comes in episode 2 when we first see Dooku. Since this is a ranking, at number 5, I do have the last episode, which also focuses on Ahsoka. I thought this episode was great too. We kind of see what she does after season 7, where she goes, and I thought it was great how it opened up with Padme's funeral. That's something that I really wanted to see more of. I thought they might have thrown Vader in this episode. I thought maybe like towards the end we would see him visiting Padme's grave. That's still something I really want to see in either live action or animation form. But to see that Ahsoka was there, that's where her and Rex went after the events of Clone Wars Season 7. I thought it was a cool little nod to show that. Also having Senator Amidala in there and the whole dialogue between her and Ahsoka, that I thought maybe, I mean, I guess it still could play into the Ahsoka show. Like, oh no, Amidala, is he alive by the Ahsoka show? Or does he die somewhere? Well, he's in Rogue One. He should be alive, right? I don't think we don't know an Amidala death yet. So to see like maybe this transmitter plays a part in the future, could be something there. I think that'd be kind of cool. But before the big cinematic battle towards the end of this episode, I did like some of the quiet parts in the middle where, you know, these people are starting to figure out that Ahsoka's a Jedi. That's obviously not good. To see that one of them sort of betrays her and like the whole village by alerting the Empire of her presence, and then having that Inquisitor, which I guess that's who he was, come and like burn the whole village. I thought all that was cool. Again, cinematically beautiful as we see Ahsoka looking, you know, against the Inquisitor. And then she just makes quick work of him. She doesn't have a lightsaber and she's able to just turn off his blade and kills him, right? In like one swift motion. So I thought, like, again, I thought this was great. I think just compared to these other Dooku episodes, there was more depth and substance in those episodes. But I do like how this episode ends where it shows her like rejoining the rebellion with Senator Amidala, right? He asked her if you want to join up again, and she has that face like, yeah. And then that's where she'll go in Rebels. That's why she shows up, where she shows up in Rebels, where she's already a part of the rebellion. It's the one thing I like about the show is that it does tie up a lot of the loose ends, kind of has all that connective tissue that maybe some of us were sort of questioning or wondering about where exactly, how they actually got to be a part of where they are now, right? Like with the Ahsoka and the rebellion stuff, and then all that prequel stuff, because prequels had a lot of holes. Even, Clone Wars filled up a lot of those holes, especially in terms of like Anakin's turn and everything else. But I think this show does even more than maybe Clone Wars did in terms of like actual questions that people have had for 20 plus years with Sifo Dyas and Dooku. So let's just dive into all that. Actually, right before that, I want to get to talking about Dooku so bad. I forgot in episode 5. This is where I have this. I've ranked episode 5 at number 4. So for right now, it goes episode 1, the last episode, and then I have episode 5. This is where we see Anakin training Ahsoka. We actually see Kanan as a kid in the very beginning. I don't know if anyone, I'm sure you guys have noticed it. You see him in the back with his master. We recognize the face from, we saw Kid Kanan in Clone Wars Season 7, right? So we see that it's the same like animation. He's there watching Ahsoka. Again, this is what I was talking about, that connective tissue, how it's like, I think some things that maybe a lot of like OG fans maybe sort of get this when they watch a Rebels or even like the sequel trilogy or Mando or whatever. It's sort of like we get taken out of it because we know it's like new things that maybe Lucas didn't envision at first and they weren't in the movie. So it's like we're sort of skeptical about all this new stuff. So I think it's smart that Filoni's able to like throw in Kanan in here, so it's like it makes us think that like, oh, Kanan was always there, even while Ahsoka was training with Anakin and Obi-Wan and Yoda and Mace Windu, like Kanan's in the background just watching, and it just shows that he didn't just show up in Rebels, or he wasn't just show up in Clone Wars Season 7. Like he's always been there. We just didn't see him in any of the movies. And I think, like I said, just more of that connective tissue that brings the whole universe together, makes it all feel more organic in its storytelling. So now the big thing with this episode that's really cool is that Anakin is training her against clones, right? She's fighting those battle droids. He thinks that's not a tough enough test. He wants her to be prepared for anything, right? And so this is awesome because, as we know in Clone Wars Season 7, she'll have to go up against Captain Rex and those other clones at some point. And a lot of those other Jedi, as we saw in Order 66 and Revenge of the Sith, once the clones turn on them and they start shooting, they can't really defend themselves, right? Ki-Adi-Mundi, who else? I can't think of any of the names right now. Well, Plo Koon in his ship, but if it shows that if Anakin didn't train Ahsoka against the clones in this episode, she probably would have died, So the fact that Anakin goes through all that work to really train her against anything, he's literally training to save her life, as we'll see in Clone Wars Season 7, where she uses the same tactics that she learned here to fight off against those clones and live, right? So I thought that was just a cool detail, or a cool episode to really focus on that, because it just shows that like it's not that Ahsoka was better than those other Jedi and that's why she was able to fight off the clones. It's just that Anakin made it a point to train her against anything, including, I don't think Anakin was really thinking of a clone attack. I think he was just thinking that he knows that the clones are the best with a blaster, So if she can defend against them, then she can defend against anyone with a blaster. He literally says that, right? And then the episode ends where it's literally Season 7, where it's like we go to where Rex and Ahsoka are about to walk into like the army of clones with like Jesse and everyone. And he says like, hopefully that training pays off, because he knows like we're about to get into a fight probably with a bunch of clones. Awesome. Again, tying everything together. I really, really enjoyed the show, how they did that. Okay, so now that we have all the Ahsoka episodes, I've talked about all that. Let's talk about Dooku. So the Dooku episode that I liked like the least, I guess, was that first one, episode 2. Even though I loved it, it was shocking and amazing just to see Dooku and Qui-Gon together. This is something that it's really been a weird, like, I don't want to say journey, but like I just remember being a kid and first figuring out that like Dooku was Qui-Gon's master, because in Phantom Menace it like barely gets touched upon, and as a kid you might not like really figure that out when you're watching Phantom Menace. So to figure out that like Dooku was Qui-Gon's master, and then Yoda was like Dooku's master, and it's like, as a kid it's sort of like, oh, like, is that true? Because like it's not in the movie, so it's like, what is this stuff? And as you grow older you realize there are a bunch of books that you want to read now and figure out all the lore. And it wasn't really until I was like a little bit older now that I really dived into that. And then reading the Master and Apprentice book, which I highly recommend for you guys to read. It's canon now. Disney made it back in, I think it's 2015 maybe that book came out, or maybe even 18 or 19, I don't know. It's fairly new. That touches upon the relationship between Dooku and Qui-Gon. So just to see even a little glimpse of that in that episode, I was really taken aback by it. I really loved it. And so just seeing that was cool. I love seeing how we're seeing like the politics of the Jedi. We're starting to see Dooku's first sort of inklings of turning to the dark side as he realizes that a lot of this Jedi Senate politics stuff is BS. That's not really what the Jedi are supposed to be doing, right? They're warriors of peace, not like the soldiers for the Senate. So to be put on this planet where they're not being treated right by their senator, Dooku wanting to do right by them. Dooku was never a bad guy, really. He was just corrupted by the dark side and corrupted by Palpatine later on. But right now, like he wants to just do what's right, and he just doesn't think that what the Jedi are doing right now, by sort of being bystanders and letting certain things go by, or not handling things in a certain way, he wants to be more aggressive. I love seeing that. I love seeing Dooku's mindset at this time. And then once he kind of snaps in this episode, he uses a Force choke and he Force pushes Qui-Gon out of the way, and Qui-Gon's sort of like trying to calm him down. And when you see Dooku's face like come out of that, and he sort of realizes like, I am being a little bit aggressive, but he still sort of sticks with that throughout the rest of his lifetime, right? Like that aggressive mindset. So I thought this episode was great. The only reason why I have it here at number 3 is just because the next two were a little bit better. So now number 2, I have episode 3 titled Choices. This was the Dooku Windu episode. Again, the animation's great. This one I loved since the very beginning because I felt like we were unraveling this bigger mystery. As they go in there and they're trying to figure out why this Jedi died, Dooku thought the whole thing was sort of fishy. And then as they're like sort of like investigating, right? And I love seeing like that Jedi investigation as like they're really tapping into like their Force sensitive powers, and we can tell that these people are lying to them, and then we find out that it was like the troopers that killed the Jedi because they wanted to put someone else in their place, right? So they can make decisions. So yeah, I mean, I sort of forgot like the main story of that one, I guess, like with the twist or whatever, or like I guess like their motive, the villain's motive. But I loved again seeing Dooku being aggressive, Windu being a stickler for all the rules, and to see him even be like that at a little bit of a younger age than what we saw in the prequels, but pretty much the same guy. I thought that was really cool, and just seeing Windu and Dooku like just having their lightsabers out and fighting, it's surreal. As like you hear even like that prequel music going on, or like that Phantom Menace type music, like you can sort of tell like when the Attack of the Clones like music comes on in the next episode. I loved how like they're using the music from the movie, or at least like the feel of it, right? Because the music with Star Wars is like the main thing. It's sort of like Star Wars needs like that music to feel the most like authentic to it, like its original product, or it's what George Lucas envisioned. That's why like with the sequel trilogy, when you like John Williams killed it with the music in that one as well. I guess that's a conversation of its own time with the sequel trilogy and the problems with that. But the music really is a huge thing in Star Wars, and I think this show used it like terrifically. They really used it. They didn't really shy away from not using it. So again, towards the end, we see Dooku realizing even more about all the political BS stuff. We see Windu, now he's going to the council because that Jedi died. Dooku's mad because he didn't know about this before, but now they think maybe, or at least I think now that maybe Dooku was in consideration for that position, maybe even over Windu. But because they heard of his tactics being used to uncover this mystery, they decided that Windu maybe was the better choice. And you could tell Dooku was mad about that. Sort of like how Anakin was mad about not being on the council as well, right? So it's sort of nice little mirroring between those two characters. And then my only problem with this one, even though it was my second favorite, I think it just ended too shortly. Like I just wanted to see more of it. But I guess you could say it for every episode that like I really want more. Like I really thought it was terrific, all of it. So now my favorite episode was obviously number 4. This was the Yaddle episode. I think the title of this one was The Sith Lord, right? Which I guess pertains to maybe seeing Sidious in this episode, while also maybe Dooku becoming that Sith Lord. So this episode starts out great. We see Dooku deleting the Camino files. As he goes to like the files, he says Sifo Dyas, which again, this was another thing that like as a kid and even as into adult, I was always confused about like this Camino thing and the Sifo Dyas and the cloning. Always looking up like on Wikipedia, like what exactly happened with like Sifo Dyas and who he was and why he did this, and figuring out it was really Dooku behind it all. And just to really get like just to see it even in animation form, like Dooku going there and deleting the Camino files. And that's why in Attack of the Clones, Kenobi can't find it in the archives. It's just really cool. Like, and again, it's like 20 years of like, not really question. We always kind of knew it was Dooku that deleted it, but just not really having like this physical thing to look at. And now we can really see that, like, oh yeah, it is Dooku. Like, it's easier to explain to kids now or whoever, or newcomers. Like, just watch Tales of the Jedi. You can see that Dooku deleted it or whatever. I think it's just cool. This is also where we really get to see, like, we're at Phantom Menace now. Like, in those first two episodes, we couldn't really tell like where we were at. Well, we knew we were before Phantom Menace, right? We saw Kid Qui-Gon, we saw Ahsoka, which was later on, but she's a kid. But to really, like, when what's the librarian's name again? Jocasta Nu, right? When she tells Dooku that Qui-Gon encountered a Sith, which was Darth Maul, I was like, oh wow, like we're in the Phantom Menace, like this is it, like we now have caught up and like we're in the Phantom Menace. I thought it was awesome, and I thought we were at the part where Qui-Gon was already dead, but no, like this was like that first encounter where they just had a little duel and then he left. So now from there, like after Dooku talks to, I think it was like that little conversation between Yaddle and Dooku and Qui-Gon, and Dooku has like that cool line of, you know, saying that like their students grow up so fast or whatever. Nice little moment between him and Yaddle before shit hits the fan later on. But literally right after this, we see Dooku standing at that tree. That's where he used to bring Qui-Gon. Yaddle tells him that Qui-Gon's dead. Dooku already knew, but Yaddle is bringing it up that like he's dead, like whatever. And then this is where I guess Dooku's real turn. Like, this episode answered a lot about that turn that Dooku has. Like, if we didn't get like that scene at the tree with Yaddle, like it really just shows that Qui-Gon's death played a huge part in his turning. And even when he meets Sidious later and brings it up, how mad he is about it and how that was never part of the plan, right? And we sort of get inklings of that in Attack of the Clones when Dooku's talking to Kenobi, and you know, and Qui-Gon's brought up, and Kenobi tries to explain to him that, you know, Qui-Gon wouldn't have liked what Dooku's doing, and Dooku sort of explains that, like, maybe you didn't know Qui-Gon as better than I did, you know? And so we see Dooku just reminisce about Qui-Gon's death, and then I thought when we see Dooku now getting to a ship to go to Sidious, this is where you sort of start hearing like that Attack of the Clones style music, sort of like Blade Runner even vibes I got from that initial scene of him going to the ship, and we see Yaddle following Dooku. And now a lot of people had theories that Dooku was going to be the one to kill Yaddle in the show. I thought that would be great. I was like, it makes perfect sense of why she's not in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith, or where she is, because she was in the Council in the Phantom Menace. It's like, where'd she go? It'd be perfect to be that Dooku's the one that kills her, right? So we see Dooku land. He's talking to Sidious. He's mad about Qui-Gon. Yaddle's eavesdropping. I thought all this was cool. And then to see Yaddle versus Dooku with that music was like OG Star Wars. I mean, not OG Star Wars. It was like prequel Star Wars. I guess for me, it's like OG Star Wars. That's like, I grew up more on the prequels, and I only really loved the originals like as I got a little bit more older. But just to see like Dooku, blue lightsaber, Yaddle fight, and then it was cool how it's like we think Yaddle's dead, and then she uses like the last bit of Force, and we hear like the Force theme, and she pushes it up, and then Dooku's like, I'm gonna give you peace, or whatever cold line he says, and kills Yaddle. It was like, holy shit. And then him and Sidious just like walking away or whatever. And that's like the end of like the Dooku story that we got, right? And I thought it was perfect. I thought seeing those episodes with Dooku, I think it answered a lot of questions for his turn. I personally haven't read, like I think it's Dooku Jedi Lost or something, right? I haven't read that one yet. I'm going to. I think that explains more of like Dooku's turn. But I don't really know like too much. I do wish that I know that there's I don't know if this is still canon, like those 12 other Jedi that also turned with Dooku. I thought we'd see more of that in here, but I'm not sure if that's still canon or not. But I feel like it is, right? Because they're called something like the Fallen 12 or something. So I've already talked a lot about these 6 episodes. So my final like thoughts and review on this is that I think this was terrific. I think it did a lot for the Star Wars community, especially the people that have been wanting more prequel stuff. I think this was perfect, especially, and I'm sort of falling into that category as well. because that's the era that I think is the most interesting, especially this stuff. So seeing all that was great. The animation, the music, it's hard to rate this because it's like, do I rate this like a movie? Do I rate this like a TV show? I think for what it was aiming for, knowing it's like just a 6-episode series, giving us these condensed stories, like I would give this like a 9 out of 10, maybe even like a 9.5 out of 10 in terms of like, as a Star Wars fan, seeing this stuff, seeing Dooku stuff, the Ahsoka stuff even, filling in these gaps, showing us stuff that we sort of knew, but actually putting it like pen to paper, or like seeing an animation form. Like, I think it was really cool, like the Yaddle death and everything. I really want a second season, and this is something I'm gonna be recommending to a lot of people. Like, even like the people that I know who haven't really watched the Clone Wars yet, but they've seen the main movies. Like, just this is great. Like, this, just showing them this fills in a lot of gaps, and it's really great storytelling, especially for Dooku. I think a lot of people want to know more about Dooku as well, even if you've just seen the prequels. So I can go on forever talking about this stuff. It's really late right now though, and I still have to edit this video. So if you're here for this long already, thank you for watching. Please comment down below what you guys think of Tales of the Jedi. Did you love it? Did you think it was too short? Do you think it was not needed? Do you think it was dumb maybe? Some people I could see. I don't really. I think the Star Wars fans won't think this is dumb. And so like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Have a great rest of the day.